like forever on YouTube, unlisted. All right, so welcome today to How to Get More Listings, Realtor Business Models for the 21st Century, sponsored by Miss Jenna Swinwood. Thank you, Jenna. And Jenna, you just got a new listing today, and can you tell everybody how you did it?
Sure. So we put a lot of procedures in this year for circle prospecting, and we've kind of taken a model with our business that we don't spend a lot of money trying to pay for leads or generate leads through even SEO. We do a little bit social media and that kind of stuff, but our big thing is meeting face to face, networking events. And so we put in place this year to do a lot more circle prospecting, meaning when we get a listing that we're doing door knocking around it, we're doing calls around it using Mojo, which is an automated dialer. And I've got a great new guy on our team, Brendan, and we were out door knocking doing some training together and ended up meeting a lovely man who was interested in selling his house in the new year. Went back for a consultation with him and got the listing signed.
Fantastic. And when will the listing go up?
It will be in the new year, in March. But he needs some time to get his bed out of his living room. So I'm glad we're giving him some time to do that.
So Jenna, that's interesting that you did some door knocking and it's successful. And one of the things that you and I've been talking about, and I've been thinking about a lot, is once you have one listing, the concept that I teach other people, and of course I use it myself, is how to turn one listing into 2 or 3. And today, I'm going to continue from where we were a couple of weeks ago. And the question I have for you is this. So you've got a listing starting in January. Do you mind telling us which neighborhood it's in?
It's near Alta Vista.
Okay, so the Alta Vista neighborhood. And as you know, hi, Brendan.
Hello. Sorry, my video was just off.
Yeah. Okay. So as you know, Jenna, that a lot of people, a lot of realtors, when they get one listing, they party and celebrate. I got a listing, but how do you turn one listing in a neighborhood into 3 or 4, or at least 2? And I know you guys will do open houses when you have the when it's actually listed and available for sale. That's very useful to do. But one of the things that I talked about 2 weeks ago was if you do manage to sell it, right? I like the idea, and I've just started doing it myself, of doing an open house after I sold it. And I invite all the neighbors. Okay, and you'll see when I go through my notes today that I invite the neighbors in the area to come over, and I tell the story of what we just did. And you can do this to farm a neighborhood and also to farm a property type, right? Because there are different types of farming. The farming that you and I, Jenna, learned about, and Brendan, I guess, too, and maybe Michelle and Eva as well, the type of farming that we learned when we went through our realtor course is farm a neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
Right. But you can also farm a property type. I sell lots of farms. So I let all the farmers in the area know I just sold this farm. And not just necessarily in a neighborhood, but just generally speaking, I get the message out. Or I sold a triplex or an investor product, and I get that message out to investor clients. So do you sort of kind of get the concept that you can actually farm not only a neighborhood but property types?
A property type, yeah. And actually, this is how we were door knocking. We were door knocking for an open house of a listing that we'd gotten in the area, which was through our sphere, actually. It was a referral. So we were door knocking a listing already in the area and ended up getting another listing. So
perfect. So that's how you can kind of spread the, do you remember Bob Eberts? Do you remember that name?
No.
Bob Eberts was like the godfather of realtors in New Edinburgh, Linden Lee. If you know New Edinburgh, Linden Lee?
Yeah.
And he never went out of that neighborhood. If you call Bob up and say, "Hey, Bob, I got a $800,000 home in Canada. I'd like you to list," he said, "Look, let me refer you to somebody." He literally could walk his territory. And if you had a house for about 2 decades, if you had a house in Linden Lee or New Edinburgh that wasn't listed with Bob, people would say, "What's wrong with your house?" Right? So do you have, Jenna, do you have neighborhoods where you would like to focus?
Yeah, absolutely. Our office just moved out to the Canada area here, so doing like Canada, Stittsville, Barrhaven is sort of my favorite places to be. But it's kind of nice with the real estate team because Michelle, living in Gatineau, has a lot easy access to the west, or to the east and to downtown. And then, we've got Brendan and Vlad who are kind of newer out of the gates and are willing to drive anywhere and everywhere. But at the end of the day, you can't be a whole city realtor. We need to start focusing somewhere.
So I think you should probably get together with your group and your team and say, look, let's focus on certain neighborhoods. Let's decide what those are. And anything else, I mean, I'm not saying you have to do this. Obviously, I'm your coach, not your boss, but anything else you might refer out. Like I get lots of requests to help in Gatineau. I'm not licensed in Gatineau, but I know lots of really good realtors in Gatineau. I can refer them out. I get a referral fee like you do. That's the case. Now, I have to tell you, Jenna, in the case of commercial real estate, there's no such thing as a territory or farming in neighborhood. Ottawa is too small. Are you with me on that?
Yeah.
If I were to say, look, I'm not going to do a commercial listing in Orleans or a commercial listing in Barrhaven or Canada or whatever, we would go broke, right? It's just, in Toronto, you could say, I'm a Mississauga guy. Anything beyond that, I'll refer out, because Mississauga is many times the size of Ottawa, and that's just one area in the greater Toronto area. So in Toronto, you have to specialize in property type, and you have to specialize in neighborhood, even in commercial.
Yeah.
Because it's there's just no way you can go and do a listing appointment 2.5 hours away, when you try and cross GTA at almost any time. I was in the GTA, and my wife and I were going over to Niagara Falls and then Stratford and a few other places, and it was Sunday morning, it was 7 o'clock. We both are early risers, and we're leaving the GTA, and there's a traffic jam at 7 o'clock in the morning in a beautiful sunny Sunday morning, and it was just unbelievable. So you have to do that. Would you take on commercial listings?
I like looking at my assistant.
I'm looking at you.
I know. We've talked about it a little bit this year, and we had an opportunity to list a dog grooming place. And we had a good chat, and I had a chat with the client too. And I said, listen, like, if we did this, I'm certainly happy to put the time and effort in to do it, but I don't have those networks. I don't have those connections, and I don't know anything about dog grooming businesses. So, at this point, focusing on building the team and doing the listings and getting a little bit of I'll say like smaller scale investor things underway, I don't think commercial would be a good focus for where we're at today.
Right, I understand that. So can I ask you to do a couple of things, Jenna, with your team?
I got my notes ready.
Not a girl. Can you talk to your team about which neighborhoods for residential, you're going to focus on?
Yeah, we're doing that next week, and actually we had a great presentation from a couple guys that came down from RE/MAX in Toronto, and they really iterated, having these farming areas. So it's kind of a neat transition and a good conversation for us right now, because number one, we've got these farming areas. I won't call them farming areas. They're more the circle prospecting areas around the listings that we're doing. And what we've done with these lists is pulled the full details of all the properties in order for us to go door knocking in those communities. So we do the door knocking, we invite them to the open house, we pull the mojo list and we scrub it against the do not call list, and then we do our just listed and invite to the open house calls, and then just sold calls. And then Steph will send out a final notice saying, hey, just sold for whatever over the asking price in a couple of days. So we kind of have these mini farm areas already around each listing. And then what we're going to be doing is focusing on, actual farm areas, maybe 2,000 to 2,500. I want to do Barrhaven because that's the community I live in, and I know Brendan's out in Barrhaven as well. He can pick his own. Michelle can pick maybe something around Stittsville and Canada here where it's close to the office, and we can all have our little pockets that we have as farm area, but essentially it can all be the same info to any little farm, right?
Right. So, okay, so you're going to pick some farm areas. Great. Now, within the residential envelope, are there any particular property types that you feel you and your team have even greater expertise?
We really do a lot in the 300 to 500 price range, which I love because I love quick turnover. And that stuff, whether it's a crappy market or not, because there's so many people looking at that. You've got the first-time home buyers, you've got the investors, you've got people who are downsizing. There's such
Downsizing, right.
So that's great, but it means our average sales price sucks. So
Yeah.
I'm a little torn about where to go from there.
Well, just on that for a moment, we have some realtors in Ottawa. Some of them I've coached who do phenomenal numbers in that $300,000 to $500,000 range,
Yeah.
and they're comparable in earnings to some of the top Toronto realtors. And you know where the average price point could be $1.5 million.
Yeah.
So you can imagine you have to sell 5 $300,000 homes to be the equivalent of $1.5 million. And a $1.5 million home in Toronto is nothing much. It could be a 4-bedroom townhouse. I sold one myself in downtown Toronto, 4-bedroom townhouse, very nice, but $1.47 million. You know, it was unbelievable. And the lady who bought it, she wanted to run a bed and breakfast. And I said, I don't know if this is a great investment. When we did the cap rate thing and all the rest of that, I tried to talk her out of it, but she wanted it anyway. And so she had the money and she bought it. So I like the niche, the $300,000 to $500,000 range. And is there within that range, you know, some kind of a property type that you guys really like?
It could be like a town, either townhouses or small single in that range, really.
And your client base, Jenna, is first-time home buyers, people downsizing. Do you have a client base of investors?
We're starting to get a database of investors. We're a little bit more invested now in the AREO meetings. So we're starting to build that, and we're starting to put out a newsletter. Actually, this month will be our first month, starting to put out a newsletter to investors. So those townhouses make fantastic investments, especially with the rent increases.
Yep.
So yeah, townhouses are the small singles. They don't work well for investors though. They're better for, not probably the second-time home buyers. We don't, just the age I'm at, it's a lot of people who are now upsizing, right? Because I met people 10 years ago, they bought their first house and now they're upsizing.
So could I ask you to just talk to your team about the neighborhoods and the property types? And we've identified 300,000 to 500,000. We've identified towns and single families in that range, and we've talked about a few neighborhoods. The other thing that I'd like you to think about is all the animation stuff that I keep coming back to over and over again. So that if you want to develop an investor client base, probably the fastest way for you to do that is to turn your buyers and maybe even your sellers into investors.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want you to try and work with your team. You've learned quite a bit from me, I think, over the last few months about this stuff. I want you to try and turn your team into at least the folks who can talk about this stuff. So look, if you're, and I'm going to talk about it in the slides that I've prepared, but I think you understand where I'm coming from. I want you to have an investor client base, because that client base, especially as you and your team, even Brendan one day will be older, right? And Brendan, you may not think so, but one day you'll be my age.
Yeah, I'm younger or older than I look.
Yeah, well, whatever. Michelle looks like she's still a teenager, but but you know where I'm coming from. Okay, so I think your niche is fairly well defined, and you can define it even better and more focused, and also try and develop your investor base, not just by going to OREO meetings. For those of you who don't know what OREO is, it's the Ottawa Real Estate Investors Organization. It's a great organization started by John Walsh, a good friend of mine, and that's great. But believe it or not, out of the 2,500 people on your email list, if you were to send out an email blast saying, hey, we're going to do a webinar on how to, maybe buy a few more properties, and we'll show you how to animate them and how to get a decent return. So when you're an old lady, an old man, or you're ready to retire, you'll have some income through real estate. So I want you to think about that. Then the other thing I'd like you to do is I'd like you to at least consider talking to each of your clients as you sign them up and ask for their permission, obviously, to do open houses while you're trying to sell it. And once you've sold it, before it closes, with their permission, can I do an open house to tell the people in the neighborhood what we've done? Do you understand, Jenna?
I understand, and I'm willing to try it. Although I'm a little hesitant, anyone will show up. Like, I feel if we go out door knocking, say 300 cards,
Yep.
I would say we get 1 or 2 neighbors even to the open house when it's for sale.
Right. One of the things, though, I wanted to try and do is I want to try and make things a little easier for your team.
Yeah.
So there's going to be less door knocking and less kind of random walk through your business life. Do you understand? I'm trying to find ways to shortcut that kind of thing, because every other realtor, there's 3,000 realtors in Ottawa, and there's 48,000 in Toronto, and all those realtors are taught the same thing, door knocking, right? And there's nothing wrong with door knocking, I get that. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to short circuit that. And you'll see it in the slide deck, Jenna, in a few minutes. What I want you to try and do is at least do an open house and advertise that open house. And that open house could be in the property, but it also could be done like I'm doing it here via Zoom.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. And if you, let's say, people are so busy, right? I mean, think about yourself with your kids, and Brendan, you've got, how many kids have you got?
1 on the way.
Yeah, that's what I remember. When does the baby due?
February 10th.
Yeah. Okay. So after that, your life is going to change. So, people are so busy now, but Jenna, if you invited them to a half an hour Zoom to learn about what you guys have done, what a great job you've done selling the neighbor's property, I think people will come to that, even if they don't go to the actual open house. And it would be cool to do the Zoom from the open house.
True, and you just sold calls anyway, so that kind of makes it a little bit warmer of call.
Right.
And Michelle actually was just kind of whispering, like, does it make sense to be doing that in a 2 to 4 time slot when we could be at houses that are for sale, but it doesn't have to be the 2 to 4. Like, maybe invite people from 12 to 1, and it's an open house, but it's not an open house, right?
Exactly. So the other thing I'd like you to talk to your team about, Jenna, is I want you to ask every one of your both buyers and sellers and investors, do you want fries with that?
Yeah.
And so I learned that from my partner in real estate, Ralph Shaw, and he taught me to always ask that. And I thought, wow, really, it's kind of corny. And then I started doing it. And I'll bet you out of the 2,500 clients that you have right now, lots of them have commercial needs. They need some office space, they need some storage space, they need some industrial space, they have a shopping plaza that you didn't even know they own. So I want you to ask, is there anything else we can help you with? Do you have any commercial requirements? And then you should develop a network of realtors you like and trust that you can refer those to. And you can get anywhere from 25 to 50% referral fees just from asking that question.
Yeah.
All right. And I started doing it, and I thought I was going to get shut down. But people say, oh, yeah, I've got to, in my case, because I'm a commercial guy, I'd say, hey, listen, we got this beautiful industrial lease done, or we bought this industrial building. How cool is this? Is there anything else you can help with? No, I'm good. Well, what are you doing with your house? Do you have a house? And yeah, I have a house. I have a couple, and I'm thinking of getting rid of one. Or I had one of my tech guys who I helped with his office space for his company say, yeah, now that you mentioned it, I'm looking for a cottage. I said, oh, okay. And I said, well, yeah, you can get really nice cottages within an hour or two of Ottawa for, $200,000 or $300,000. And he said, ooh, I was looking for something a little better than that. I said, Dan, well, how much better than that? He said, oh, I've got about $1.5 million to spend. You with me on that?
Yeah.
And those are good buyer reps, right? I mean,
Right.
In that case, I would refer it out to a residential realtor, but I might get a 25 to 50% referral fee simply for asking the question of Dan, do you want fries with that?
Yeah.
Am I making any sense?
Yeah, now I'm just pissed off because my friend that sold the dog grooming place ended up selling it with a commercial realtor in town, and I didn't give a referral.
You didn't get a referral, and I'm not kidding. If you do this consistently, Ralph taught me this when I started working with Ralph at Century 21 8 years ago. And like I said, I thought it was kind of, you know, corny at first, and then I really got into it. Now I never, ever, and I try and teach the other fellows on the call with me today. You know, Steve's on the call, Simon's on the call, Nick's on the call, Evan, Trish, and Guillaume. You always ask. And they're really, really good commercial and residential realtors. You know, I'm very close to Mike Robinson. You know Mike?
Yeah.
And he and I've been friends for a long time. And, you know, in Stittsville, I mean, he's very well known, right?
Yeah.
Now that I know Michelle, if Michelle's going to take on Stittsville, I'll certainly be talking to her about that. All right, let me share my screen here. See if I can do that. And I'm just going to go over a few of the slides from last time and I tried to simplify it a little bit. So how to get more listings. And Jenna, one of the things I've tried to do is I've tried to rethink the realtor model, because when I got into this business after the Sens folded, after they went bankrupt, you know, I thought the business was kind of, maybe it was falling off the rails. And when I talked to you last week, and you told me that you thought realtors might become extinct in the next 5 or 10 years if they don't get their act together, I think you and I are on the same wavelength. So do you want to just take a second and just say for the record what was in your mind when I mentioned that to you and you concurred?
I think that it's just that, you know, the technology that's coming out and the business models like Uber, where it's control everything but own nothing, is really becoming, especially for the millennials who are coming up now, is really becoming the way to go. And
right.
Do it yourself has just been made so easy. And with what our real estate boards had to sort of give into with getting the for sale by owners online on MLS, what is MLS now? It's not just a full service. These realtors providing full service to people. It's just a smorgasbord of everything. And essentially, you've got these for sale by owners that can be called directly from our MLS system. So between that, things like Twillo and all the different places like DDF that are now offering the information that we were holding so close to our hearts when there wasn't all this technology. And I wasn't in real estate at the time, sorry, but you know, those binders that we had that had the properties, and that was like, you know, the real estate Bible as to what was available. And now that is open to anyone and everyone at the touch of a mouse.
So let me ask you this question, Jenna. If I was going to list my house with you and you were doing a listing presentation with me, what would be the top 3 reasons I should list with Jenna and Co?
One, I always tell people, like, I will treat my house as if it was your house. I would negotiate it as if it was my house. I'm going to help you get it ready as if it was my house. And at the end of the day, I'm going to be very honest and upfront with you as to what it's going to take to get your house sold in this market. And if they need a little bit more information on that, or they don't necessarily believe me, you know, I go into a little bit more detail just about, you know, there's a lot of realtors that'll put a sign on your lawn, and in 3 months from now, you're going to be wondering why that sign's still there. And it's only because essentially agents can buy your listing. So it's your house. At the end of the day, you get to make the decision, but I will tell you honestly what I know will get your house sold today. And that's how I run my business. Number 2, it comes down to the marketing and advertising. And, you know, it's hard to say this, but it's the truth that, you know, when you list on MLS, now we have all these great technologies and tools to get your listing out everywhere. You'll see your home when I list it on ComFree. You'll see it on Century 21. You'll see it on Remax. You'll see it everywhere. And it's now marketed internationally. So it's a pro, but at the same time, it's, you know, deterring buyers from working with us.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3, it really comes down to the service, the marketing, the advertising, and our strategy in order to get not only the home sold, but for the most money possible. And we've got, you know, statistic after statistic, and I can pop on the MLS and show them, you know what, look, the last 40 homes we've sold this year have all sold over asking price within the first week. Here's our average days on market versus average days on markets for the real estate board. So those are my value adds.
I think those are really good. I would suggest a couple of other things that you might do, and I think you already alluded to it, but I think you would want to say, in addition to that, you have the right client, the right buyer client. And that's a huge deal when you go into a listing. I do this commercial stuff. So if I go into an industrial, building, and the landlord, the owner wants to sell that, my client base of investors and people who are interested in industrial matches that like this. And I would imagine you could say, quite truthfully, that because you're going to focus on neighborhoods, and you're going to focus on property type, and therefore you're going to have a certain buyer attracted to Jenna & Co. So I think you should add that as a reason for hiring Jenna & Co, because you have buyers waiting, right? That's the way we say it. So that would be something to add. And then the other thing I think, differentiated value that you can say is that with all this do-it-yourself stuff that you talked about 3 or 4 minutes ago, Jenna, in addition to that do-it-yourself thing, the for sale by owner, that for sale by owner, still for most of those FSBOs, they're being sold by realtors.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what I say to people, because people will often say, look, in commercial too, trust me, they'll say, I can do this myself. I say, God bless you, go ahead and do it. No problem. You give it a shot. But before you do that, I want you to think about this. If you put it up for sale by owner, a realtor is going to show up at your door, because most buyer clients are represented by a realtor because they want professional representation. And when they show up, the first question he or she is going to ask you is, will you pay a commission?
Yeah.
And so I say to the FSBO, would you pay a commission to somebody represented by a buyer agent? And he or she, the owner, will say, sure, yeah, of course. But I'm only paying 2.5%, not 5%. So I'm saving 2.5%. I said, yeah, okay, I'll buy that. So you're only paying 2.5%. And the other 2.5%, where's that going? And the owner will say, what do you mean, where's it going? Well, I said, you're putting in all the time. If you think about what a realtor does who represents you, he or she does 30 of these deals a year, 60 of these deals, some do 100 ends. And so they have tremendous expertise. You don't. You have your business to run. So when you take into account how much time you're going to put in, and how many problems you could get into, right? And how much more legal costs you're going to have, because you're going to have to hire a lawyer to review this, I'm going to tell you, I think you're going to end up paying more than 5%. And they laugh. Sometimes they believe me and sometimes they don't. But I think that's a very powerful argument.
Okay, so my side question to all that is that they don't know that. Right? And right. 9 times out of 10, for sale by owners, or people thinking about going for sale by owner, are going to meet with just that one company. So how do we get to those people as a second opinion before they list for sale by owner?
Right. That's a good question. And I'll come back to that. But I want to make sure you understand. I think, we have buyers waiting, and you and your team are able to talk intelligently with a prospective client about who is thinking about going for sale by owner, that he's going to end up paying a commission anyway. He's probably going to get a lower price, and he's going to do all the work, and he's going to make all the mistakes. And you should have at least one story amongst your group of an example of that. And I'm going to give you that example, okay? I don't do a whole lot of residential. Simon and Nick do most of it, but I do some. And I represented Jay Curry, who's one of the owners of the Barley Mow, when he bought a house in Stittsville. Do you know Jay?
No.
Michelle, do you know him?
No.
He's a big wheel in Stittsville. And, he owns the Barley Mow chain of restaurants. And, Jenna, there was $1.5 million house in Stittsville. Maybe it was $2 million. It was beautifully done. It was done by a contractor. I mean, it was really fantastic. And this was 2010. So we were just coming out of a tough recession, right? Michelle, are you old enough to remember 2010?
I remember 2008 when people were crying when they lost all their money.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, me too. So, Jenna, there I am in 2010 helping Jay, because I've helped Barley Mow buy a bunch of buildings and done a bunch of leases for him. And I asked him, do you want fries with that? And he said, yes, but I want you to do it, Bruce. So even though you might be mainly in the residential field, there will be the occasional client who says, I don't care, Jenna, I don't want you to refer me out. I want you to work on the problem. And for certain clients, I'll do that. You understand?
Yeah.
I mean, they're like Jay, I've done a lot of work for Barley Mow, and he's an important client for me and he's a great person to work with. So we went out, we saw this fantastic house, and we put in an offer for $875,000 on a $1.5 million listing, and the building replacement cost was at least $2 million. So it was a tough recession. Jay's a tough businessman. He put in an offer at $875,000. And I called it was a for sale by owner. And I said, I have an offer for you, and I'm going to come and present it. So I did. And he agreed to pay Century 21 a commission of 2.5%. And he said the offer is ridiculously low, and I'm not interested. And I said, fine. This listing had been days on market at least 300 days. In 2010, there weren't that many people looking for $1.5 million houses. So I said to Jay, he rejected it. Jay said, he's a businessman. Okay. And we waited 3 months, we went back. So now days on market has gone really out of control. And I gave it to the seller, and we negotiated a deal of about $880,000. Jay went up a little bit, but just a tiny bit. And finally, the guy accepted it. But I said, before you sign this, could you please send it to your lawyer and review it? Have you heard this story from me before? I think you might have, right? But I want to make sure that Michelle and Brendan hear it, as well as Eva and everybody else on the call. So and I sent him lots of emails, please get legal advice, and he didn't. So what then happened was about 2 weeks before completion day, I get a call from his lawyer. He just didn't want to spend the money on legal fees. I got a call from his lawyer saying they weren't going to close because we had included over $120,000 worth of chattels. And the seller, the FSBO, wasn't clear on whether chattels were included or excluded. He just wasn't clear on that concept.
Yeah.
And so we got his home theater system, which was worth a ton of money. We got his tractor. We just went to town. And the lawyer said, he's not going to close because he didn't understand. And I said, well, wait a second, before you don't close, let me forward you the series of emails where I practically begged him, I don't represent you. I only represent the buyer. Please get a legal review. And he refused. And the lawyer went quiet after that. And 2 weeks later, they did close. Yeah. So I tell that story obviously a lot. I've just told it again for the record here. I'm sure, Jenna, there's got to be at least one story like that in your repertoire where somebody, sorry, I'm not going to use Jenna and Co. I'm going to do it myself, and they got completely taken advantage of.
Yeah, we have a good story from this year about somebody who was COM-free and then was a referral from somebody we'd sold on the street. And it's right there on MLS, and I'll pull it up, but there was a house that was up for sale for $489. They couldn't get it sold. I have all the old pictures. It looked terrible. They tried COM-free for 10 days,
wow.
Took it off the market. I sent my stager in, new pictures. We listed it for the right price, $450, and sold it for $507.
Wow. See, those are the stories. So those are the two additions, right? We have buyers waiting, and if you're thinking of going it on your own or going with somebody else, think about what can happen if you do that. But you've got to back it up with a case study. I call it a case study. It's just a story. People really don't learn from just talking to them. You have to tell them stories, right?
Yeah.
It goes in their head and they get it. All right. So let's keep going up. All right, I'm going to go to my slides now. All right, so thank you again, Jenna, for sponsoring this, how to get more listings. And last time we talked about it, this is how most realtors today get listings. They do a bathing suit competition, right? You should you should work with me because I'm really, I got a beautiful car, and what do you think of my suit? Look at my dress, and they're just comparing one with the other based on, hey, trust me, I'm really good. That's not good enough today. And then last time I talked about this particular property on San Josef, when we got the listing, this is a commercial listing, I knew more about this property, or knew at least as much about this property as the seller. So I never go into a listing presentation, even if I'm just doing door knocking. If you know that neighborhood and you know that property type, there's a lot of information that you have on that property in advance, including what that property is probably worth, right? All right. So deep property knowledge is key to getting a listing. And then going with what I said about 2 or 3 minutes ago, because I specialize in property types and areas, mainly being Ottawa, I know what the ideal buyer looks like. For that particular property, the ideal buyer is somebody who wants to live and work on that site. So an HVAC guy, a plumber, an electrician, somebody who's selling RVs and wants to live and work there and have some independent income. I've got hundreds of those clients already in my database. The other thing that I want you guys to be sure that you understand is all this animation stuff that I'm talking about, because what you're going to do is you're going to do lots of presentations to get listings, but some of those listings, in fact, all of them, you're going to ask the question, do you want fries with that? And also, you're going to at least raise the possibility that maybe they don't sell it. Maybe they refinance it and buy something else. Can we help you with that? If they say they want a list, no matter what, that's what you're going to do. And this is the alternative strategy that we talked about last time. Maybe they should hold on to the property, animate it, refinance it, drive the value up, do it, and buy more. So that's how you can help Brendan get more buyer rep. So what are we trying to do in these listing presentations, Jenna? We're trying to go improve our trust, gain respect, and from trust and respect comes credibility.
Yeah.
All right? And all of that is enhanced through storytelling. So make sure your team is all comfortable telling stories, right?
Okay.
And the marketing you're doing, most people don't really understand what marketing is. And I'm going to come back to more specifics on how to get more listings. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten. But I want to make sure that you understand what kind of marketing you're supposed to be doing and what the purpose of marketing is. You know, when I started out in this business, I went to like marketing gurus, you know, and I said, can you tell me more about marketing? As an engineer, I really didn't know marketing. And I'm not saying that I know as much about marketing as, say, somebody like Steve Foster. I don't. But at least I understand it better than I did 8 or 10 years ago. And what most people tell you when you go to a marketing agency is that you do marketing to build your brand. Okay, and why do you do that? Well, it's a good thing to have a good brand. All right, but the thing that they don't tell you, Jenna, and the missing link is, and no one seems to know this, it took me, you know, years to figure it out, is the reason you do marketing, yes, it's to build your brand, but through the brand, you create trust, right? So if I were to, Jenna, if you and I were to open up this little sandwich shop, we're going to call it Jenna and Bruce's Best on Earth Sandwiches. And Brenda and Eva and Simon and Trish and Guillaume and Michelle are driving by in a van. And they see Jenna and Bruce's Best on Earth Sandwich Shop. And 2 doors away, they see a Subway shop. Jenna, where are they going?
Subway.
Right. Not because you and I can't produce better sandwiches than Subway, and maybe at a equal price point. We can. But because Subway spends an incredible amount of money building their brand, and people, one thing that even people who are in the marketing business can't tell you is why they think it's a good thing, other than it's a good thing to have a good brand. It's because it creates instant trust. I can go to Subway, I know what I'm going to get. So the Jenna & Co. brand, once you have decided on the property types that you're going to focus on and the neighborhoods, you're going to go to town so that when people in Stittsville and Canada and Barhaven or wherever else you're focused on, and whatever, hear the name, I'm with Jenna & Co. They go, oh yeah, you're the Subway of realtors in our area. You're going to be the Bob Eberts, right? If your house isn't listed with Jenna & Co. in those 3 areas, there must be something wrong with you. That made Bob a millionaire.
Does it make sense to use something as big as RE/MAX?
In what sense?
Like instead of, I mean, obviously we have to market our business name, Jenna & Co., but you know, when we're doing our cold calls and inviting people to open houses, we're trying to keep it really simple with the brand that's already built. 90%, 95% of the people know RE/MAX. So hi, it's Jenna Swinwood calling with RE/MAX.
Yeah, you're going to have to make that determination. And everybody on this call, you're going to have to forgive me. I'm going to use a bad word, but I'll be honest. As a commercial realtor, I could be working for Shit Realty. I could have a sign saying Shit Realty, Bruce Firestone, and I would still get listings. Okay, excuse me, girls, for ladies and gentlemen, for that. But it is true. I've actually talked about this. So my brand, Bruce Firestone, is important because I was with another commercial realtor group before. I won't mention which one. And, you know, I was starting out. I really didn't like it over there. And I had 50 clients. And Jenna, when I left to come and work with Ralph at Century 21 Explorer, I had 50 clients there, and 49 out of 50 followed me. And I'm guessing, I'm not saying you should ever leave RE/MAX, but if you ever left RE/MAX, how many of your existing clients would follow you?
Probably everyone, but this is not who we're thinking about marketing to at the moment. I felt we're talking about like farm areas, right?
Correct. But
So
what I'm saying, so what I'm saying to you, to me, if it was me, it would be Jenna and Co. You know, I'm not saying it correctly. Jenna and Co. brought to you by RE/MAX.
Yeah.
Right? But Jenna and Co., because I'm not saying you'd ever leave RE/MAX, but if you ever have a dispute with RE/MAX, or you just don't like the way they're treating you and you move, you know, 49 out of 50 clients moved with me to Century 21. And the one that stayed with the other firm, 2 years later, he came over and didn't like how he was being treated there. And so I eventually did get 50 out of 50. And I suspect you'd be exactly the same. So at least in my experience, Jen & Co. is the brand, and RE/MAX is certainly important. I do accept that, but it's of secondary importance. I think Jen & Co. is really important. People today don't buy what you're selling. They buy why you do what you do.
Yeah.
And Jenna, I've gotten to know you over the last couple of years. You know, we've known each other now for a while, and you are totally committed. And I think your face is part of the branding exercise. I know a lot of women don't like that, but it's still, in the internet age, it's about faces. Okay, don't even my old face here, you know, is a brand of its own, right? People still recognize me on the street for various things, right? And and so, you know, even an old guy can have his own brand such as his. But somebody like yourself, I think you're the face of the franchise.
Yeah, and that is definitely something I struggle with, because I know that this is something that I want to build and have it as, you know, I don't think I would ever sell the business. I always sort of want to be involved, but I want people to know it's a team, so that it's not a surprise to people when they're like, "Oh, Jenna, thanks for selling our house. We're looking to buy now."
Yeah.
Oh, what do you mean it's not you? So what I was thinking is, as we do more webinars and more online stuff and YouTube channels, is that it's a video from me, it's a video from Michelle, it's a video from Brendan, it's a video from Vlad, it's maybe even Stephanie put some stuff up. And
absolutely, I completely agree with you. But look, branding is not the same as selling. Okay, branding is part of marketing. If you meet somebody, Jenna, who has a business card that says Vice President of Marketing and Sales, you've just met somebody who doesn't know what he's doing. Because marketing and sales are totally different.
oh, yeah.
So you are the face of the franchise. Everybody see this picture up here, right, on the screen? Okay, now that's the face of the franchise, whether you like it or not. And a lot of women don't like being the face of the franchise. They're modest. They don't want to put themselves forward. I get that. Guys don't have that problem. I mean, have you ever noticed when there's a streaker running across a sporting event naked? It's always a guy, right? I mean, have you ever seen a streaker, a female streaker? I haven't. So guys are, you know, hey, put me on the cereal box. Women say, oh no, put my husband on the, or put my CFO on the. No, you are the face of the franchise. You have to accept that. And I believe that the brand should be Jenna & Co. That's the face of the franchise, with the name, with the type of properties that you like, and with the neighborhoods you like. And everything else is subsidiary to that. And you can have a million videos there, and it doesn't have to be just you. But that's my opinion anyway.
Okay. I was listening to those two guys that came in from Toronto this week on the Wednesday, and they were presenting on farm areas, but one of their, you know, their big sort of problems, I guess, right now is that they're getting a little bit older in the business, is that they were the face all the time, and people wouldn't go and work with anybody else because they were the business. And I think that's what I'm trying to
you know, one of the things I like about you is you're stubborn. Has anybody ever told you that?
Never. No one's ever told I was stubborn.
No, I'm not believing that. I think that's not breaking news. Okay, no, but all kidding aside, Jenna, Kentucky Fried Chicken, the face of the franchise was Colonel Sanders,
Yeah.
right? And it's still around, right? And so Jenna and Co. If you want to create something that's got legs, and you and I will talk in another session about how to create an inheritable business, a business that will stand the test of time and will survive you. That's sellable or inheritable. You understand? There are ways to do it. I've been giving this a lot of thought for eight or 9 years that I've been a realtor. How to create a realtor business model that has legs. In other words, actually has value, even if you were to fly off to Costa Rica or go see St. Peter, long time from now. Okay, but so you can be the face of the franchise for a very, very long time, right? And even when you move on, right, people will know Jenna and Co. as a brand.
Yeah.
Once you are a brand, I mean, what was Hewlett? Do you know Hewlett and Packard?
Yeah.
There was a Mr. Hewlett and there was a Mr. Packard. But do you ever think when you hear the name Hewlett, I'm having trouble, H&P, do you think of the individuals? No, you just think of Hewlett Packard, right?
Yeah, true.
Okay, so I'm trying to persuade you. Okay, so this is the more complicated version of the same thing I just showed. Okay, so everybody pay attention for 2 seconds. Money invested in storytelling, which is simple to understand and builds your confidence with every repetition and authentically rings true to your audience because it appeals directly to their limbic, older, nonverbal, instinctual part of your audience's brain, means your marketing builds your brand by instilling in your audience a belief that you actually know why you do what you do and that you really mean what you say, which creates an instant trust with your stakeholders. And it's trust that allows you to sell more products or services, which generates more money for more storytelling, more marketing in an endlessly reinforcing virtuous circle. Virtually nobody on the planet, I don't think, other than me, actually understands marketing that well. I've asked, like I said, I've asked marketing gurus working for the National Hockey League in New York, and they don't know any of this stuff. But that is the reality of how to build a great brand. And Jenna, you want to build a great brand. Jenna and Co, I think, has that potential. And so does Simon and Nick on this call, who are looking to build Terrace Properties, and I think Trish and Guillaume, who are looking to build GT Global Prosperity, right? That's how you build a great brand. That's the actual microscopic, get in the engine room and build the engine kind of stuff. Okay, everybody clear on that?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Now, we know you have to list to last.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. The key thing to getting more listings is not just having more mass numbers where you get 10 listing presentations, 20 listing presentations, but converting more of them. And one of the things that you told me, Jenna, is that when you have 10 listing presentations, you're getting 6 or 7 out of 10. Is that right?
Yeah, not these days. We're doing it to a few more consults than actual listing presentations.
So what would your average be right now?
Well, I would say 30% right now.
Okay, so your target should be between, you want to have a batting average long-term of 400 or higher. So you and your team should get together, whether it's once a week or once a month, however often you need to do it, and look at, if we've made 10 listing presentations, can we get 4 out of 10? And long term, if you get 4 out of 10, you have a sustainable business. If you can get 5 or 6 out of 10, fantastic. My long-term average is somewhere between 4, 5, and 6 out of 10. I have some periods where, I don't know, maybe I'm losing it's like a pitcher in the 7th inning, I'm losing my stuff, where it goes down to 4, and then I have other times where maybe I'm hitting it on all cylinders and it's 5 or 6. Every once in a while, I'll get to 7 out of 10, but that's very unusual. So 4, 5, or 6 out of 10 is where you want to be. All right, and at some point, Jenna, I think you want to also talk about the fact that the kind of work that you do for clients is you're going to not just consider them as clients, as sellers, as buyers, but as people you're coaching through a process. That's the thing that, boy, I'll tell you, when I tell people I'm going to coach them through it, I obviously do it in a formal way where I get paid for it, but I believe, and I don't know if you believe it, but I believe that long-term, the future of the realtor is to become a lifetime real estate advisor to your clients, lifetime, and that involves coaching. And even if it's not paid coaching, it's just free coaching to get the listing or to get the buyer rep, you tell people, I'm going to coach you through that. If you use that language, you might move the needle up from 3 or 4 out of 10 to 5 or 6 out of 10. Okay?
Okay. Yeah, that gave me another idea too. Like just as you were saying that, you know, we do a lot of work with our database and, you know, offering to the A+ and A clients, as we're calling them, the script needs to be a little bit different than those B's or C's, where it's exactly that. Like, you know, I did a lot of work with M1 with Rock Thomas, learning how to do net sheets and that kind of stuff. So maybe, you know, our value add in the new year is just to say like, hey, do you need help putting a net sheet together? What is your home worth in today's market? Is it part of your retirement plan? Do you want to know what these numbers are now that the market's gone up? You know, maybe you've got some equity in there. Maybe you want to try investing and diversifying in real estate versus having everything in stocks and bonds and mutual funds.
And that's such a great story, man. I am so proud of you for laying that out there. And the other thing I would do, if you're comfortable, is I think you should talk, and you should do a video. You should talk about your own experience. And you don't have to name the names, but you could say, look, I put hundreds of thousands of dollars into Walton. You don't have to name Walton. This is a private, everybody on this video knows this is a private video. It's never going to be published anywhere, so we can talk freely. It's being recorded. It'll be on YouTube. It'll be unlisted. But you can say, look, I put hundreds of thousands of dollars into Walton. I put hundreds of thousands of dollars into RSPs and tax-free savings account and Fortress and all this other stuff, and none of it's worked worth a darn for me. How are your mutual funds doing? Jenna, you told me that your mutual funds are between -2% and +2%. You've been promised 8 or 10%. They don't perform anywhere near that. And that's a powerful story. So storytelling is part of this. So part of your coaching is to reach into your own experience and tell people that. People really understand authenticity. That's what millennials are looking for. Yeah. So if I were a millennial client and I came to Jenna and Co., or I went to Nick and Simon or whatever, or if I'm going to work with Trish and Guillaume, and I feel that these companies I'm dealing with are authentic, and they've had some bad experiences. You know, most people don't want to talk about their bad experiences, but I found if you're truthful with people and say, look, you know, I told you I invested $1 million with the CIBC private bank between 1995 and 2000. I lost 2% a year. In the greatest stock market boom since the 19th century. I lost 2% a year. It's almost impossible to do in that time, right? And when I tell people that, they go, so you think real estate is better? Yes, I do. So I think that should be part of, and you can do some YouTube videos, and again, they can be unlisted, so the only people who see those videos are people that you want. And so one of the things that I do before every listing presentation, you've seen me do it, is I'll sell them. I'll send them a blog article. I said, I think you should read this, something that I wrote, or something that somebody else wrote, but it's really on point. Or I'll send them a YouTube video that I've done on something. I say, look, I'm coming, I'll see you next Tuesday for the listing presentation, but I really think you should look at this if you have time. It's incredibly powerful, right? And the personal story and the personal history of how nothing has worked for you other than real estate, both as a profession and as an investment, is a powerful motivator. And it's all part of your coaching package. At some point, I believe that, Jenna, you know, maybe not today, but within a short period of time, you will feel comfortable enough, you could charge for this. And I think that's the future for realtors. All right, so we've talked about this. Let's keep going. So you remember this story. So this is a property type. Even though it's a residential sale, you remember this when you put one of your clients put in an offer. We sold this over asking, and we told the story. And the story was how to animate it, how you could live and work on the same property, how you could use the detached garage, which isn't there anymore, as a workshop, how you could do some front yard parking, how you could have a path to the Jockvale River. There's a picture of the river. How you can be close to, I guess that's the high school. You're in Barrhaven. And also, if you remember the story, if you are a developer, how you could have some income while you're waiting for services to be extended in this area and other things to happen, right? So when it comes to, you know, who they're going to list with, it was pretty obvious that the sellers were going to list with us. Now, the one thing that I didn't do here, Jenna, that I should have, and I wanted Nick and Simon to do, but I hadn't really thought it through until you asked me the question, how to get more listing. This would have been a perfect thing for us to do. So we could have gone back into this house, whoops, this house here. We could have held an open house, both actual in the house with permission, after we sold it,
Yeah.
with the owner, owner's permission, that is, and on put it on Zoom. And we probably would have had probably close to 100 people come. 2 would have shown up to the actual open house, and 98 would have shown up on Zoom. But we could have done that, and we could have used that as a property type to get more listings in the neighborhood without necessarily having to walk around and knock on everybody's door. Right? So that's why I'm encouraging you to do that too, because we're gonna do this now. I mean, I didn't really think about it until you asked me the question, and then I said, oh yeah, okay. So there you go. So deep product knowledge, right? And again, ask, do you want fries with that? All right. One of the things that when you're expanding your reach for these webinars, one of the things I really want you guys to do is to develop relationships with Oreo and Rain, with the BIAs, the business improvement areas, especially in Barrhaven, Canada, and Stittsville. They all have these wonderful email lists. And they can't give you those email lists, obviously, that's against the law. But what they can do is they can allow you to advertise in their newsletter. And I particularly like the Canada North BIA. It used to be run by Jenna Suggs. Do you know Jenna?
Sorry, I just had an idea I was telling Steph, so I didn't tell you the last.
Okay, well, tell me, don't keep it to yourself.
Oh, you were just talking about, like, okay, well, a little bit of a backstory. So I hosted a webinar. Yeah, we did. And Brendan was there, and Michelle was there, and Steph was there, and one other call-in person that we have no clue who it was.
Well, I mean, you know, okay, you got to start somewhere. Just to make you feel better, Mohammed in the deserts of Saudi came out of the desert with 5 followers. There was Mohammed and 5 followers. And within, I think, 3 years, he was knocking on the gates of Europe and almost overran Europe. There was a huge battle that I think at Constantinople, which is now called, well, it's in Turkey. So, you know, Mohammed started with 5 followers. So you don't need many to change the world, Jenna.
It's true. Brendan, did she ever get in touch with that guy? Figure out who it was? Yeah.
You know, didn't call back, and that was yesterday or Saturday morning.
But anyway, it went really well, and just my idea was Michelle's going to a Rio this week, and so I was like, Steph, make sure you print we're going to do another webinar in 2 weeks. Make sure you print out the flyer. She's like, Jenna, it's already done and printed. So
listen, I wasn't quite in agreement. I didn't want to say anything. Is Stephanie on the call now?
Yeah, she's here.
Okay. Well, Stephanie and hi, Steph. You know, I wouldn't do weekly webinars. That's too much for you. I would do monthly or quarterly webinars. I would rather have one webinar every, 4 times a year with 100 people than, a webinar every week with 1 or 2 people.
Heard. I heard you.
Yeah,
we were thinking of doing something like twice a month where I would be on the listing one every second week, and then the guys would be, Brendan and Michelle would be on a buyer one or an investor one.
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, you guys will find your way. But what I'm saying is that the frequency is determined by you, not no one else. And I would rather do one webinar a month with 40 people on it than one webinar a week with 2 or 3. It's just, your time is so valuable, right? I mean, golly, we're all working our butts off, right? I mean, like, I'm working 3,500 hours a year. I'm trying to be as efficient as I can. So you'll come to the right conclusion. But I can tell you that when I did a webinar, I can't remember which one it was, and I wasn't getting a lot of turnout for my own list. I went to Canadian Real Estate Wealth. And has everybody subscribed to that? Brendan, did you subscribe to this yet?
No, not yet.
Jenna, did you?
No.
Okay, in my opinion, listen, this is just my advice. Everybody, it's free. It comes in every day. It's one of the few newsletters that I read like a lot, right? And it's free. You can just go to Canadian Real Estate Wealth, sign up, and they won't sell your email address to anybody else. But it comes in every every day, and it's got really, really good information about real estate across Canada. It'll really help you educate yourself on the market. Like I said, it's free. And there's another one. Brendan, are you interested in commercial real estate?
Somewhat. I mean, I do have a friend through the comedy club that's always looking to kind of expand. So I kind of keep my eye out on bars or suitable spaces that might work for that, especially Canada, possibly Barrhaven.
Yeah. Okay. So Jenna, I'd really like you guys to everybody in your company to subscribe. It's called CREW, Canadian Real Estate Wealth, Canadian Real Estate Wealth. So CREW, and you can just find it online. The other thing that I strongly recommend you guys look at, and again, it's free to sign up, is, I'll find it here in a second. So this is the newsletter put out by John Kumba. Oh, I got to put it on this other screen, sorry. So this is, it's called Of Capital Interest. It comes out next month. And can you write this in your notes? It's produced by Juto. You can see it on my screen. Can you read it on the screen here?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Juto Johnson Kumba Inc. Kumba Inc. And it's created by John Kumba. And what it does is it gives you an overview of the Ottawa market every month. So employment rate, housing starts, and sales. But these are only sales above $500,000, okay? And only by commercial. So you do get residential sales and industrial sales and office sales, but this is the single most powerful newsletter created in Ottawa to keep track of commercial. So rural land sales, commercial land sales, institutional and residential land sales, retail stores that are sold, these are sales, not leases, office buildings that are sold in industrial buildings. So Jenny, even for somebody like yourself, if you're going to make this, do you want fries with that question, you should get this. And it's only about 3 or 4 pages. It takes probably less than 10 minutes to read, and it's really good, okay?
Okay, I know I subscribed to that one the last time. How often does he put it out?
Well, John is he's kind of like me, you know, he's not young, and he does it when he feels like it.
Oh.
All right. So let me see if I got that. Where am I? So I'm just checking where I am on these slides. I think I got the wrong one here. Hang on a second. Yeah, I do. Apologize, everybody. Just bear with me. So Jen, tell me where you're at with the. So anyway, just coming back to CREW one more time. So when I was, I didn't have a big turnout for a webinar, so maybe I had 15 people. I asked CREW to include me in one of their newsletters, so it'll go out saying, hey, the master, Prof. Bruce, is giving a webinar on something cool. Click here if you're interested. I went from, you know, having 15 signups to having about 60. And they charge you for that. I think it was $1,000. Steve Foster arranged it for me, something like $1,000. But, you know, out of that, I got a lot of business, like these piggybacking. And I said to you earlier in this session that I really like the Canada North BIA, and it's run by Jenna Suds. Do you know Jenna Suds? Well, she is now the counselor in Canada. You know, Marianne Wilkinson retired.
Oh, okay. Okay. No, I didn't know that.
Well, you should introduce yourself to her. She's your new counselor in Canada.
Okay.
And you'll remember her first name, right?
Yep.
So she's your age. She has 3 beautiful kids. She's the former executive director of the Canada North BIA.
Ah.
She's now the Canada North counselor. She beat David Gourley, who I've known since he was a boy. Everybody said David is going to win that election.
Yeah.
And I told David, I said, you're up against a very formidable candidate, and Jenna is top notch. She's just like you. She's, you know, an attractive person. I hope you don't mind me saying, great family person, and she's going to be, I think, a great counselor. And I supported Jenna, even though I've known David since he was a little boy. Mm-hmm. And she's going to really help make Canada North trendy again. Yeah. As you know, Jenna, if you're a tech company, a startup or a tech company, you don't want to be in Canada North. You want to be downtown.
Yeah.
That's where the kids want to be, the millennials want to be. So one of Jenna's missions, and I agree with her, is to make Canada North cool. And that's going to take some work. Part of that is to bring the LRT up March Road.
Yeah.
I was on March Road this morning at 9:30. March Road is failing. The traffic on March Road, even at 9:30, is impossible. You can't move. So Jenna is somebody you should get to know. But more importantly, she created a 20,000 person email list. Think about that. And those are the people that you want to represent as buyers, right, Brendan? Because they have money and they have an interest in Canada. They're all there. 20,000 people. And there's a Stittsville BIA. Do you have all the BIAs?
Yeah, you listed them last time. I have them.
I did. So it's easy to get in touch with them, and Steph does all your marketing for you, and they'll charge you $500 or $1,000 and put you in every once in a while. I'm doing a webinar. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. If you need help selling or buying or investing, and by the way, by the time people are 40 in tech, they're really interested in real estate, right? Because at 40. The tech companies are looking at those guys saying, oh, that person's really old. We can push him or her out the door and get somebody who's 25 a lot cheaper and who's maybe faster, right? So by 40, 42, 45, they're going, holy smokes, I got to do something. And they're the perfect buyer and seller for you, right? They're going to upsize, they're going to downsize, they're going to add more. They're very interested in investing. And so you should get to know, there's a new executive director of the Canada North BIA, but you should, in my opinion, as the face of the franchise, you should get to know every one of the heads of the executive directors of the BIAs. And you should make sure that Canada is very dominant in those newsletters, in my opinion.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right. And tell me about your door hangers.
They have just a door hanger. Yeah, we have more of them. Ta-da!
Oh, okay. Okay, just sold. They're beautiful. Just sold. Good. And turn it around.
We don't really go all out. They're supposed to call us.
Okay, so I put this one up here. This is a door hanger. This is absolutely trash, okay? She's talking about trust without giving anybody any reason to trust her. And she's talking about experience, but she doesn't give any, there's no story here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is terrible. And most of these door, I really believe in door hangers. I mean, everybody talks about Facebook advertising. I wouldn't spend 10 cents on Facebook advertising unless I was a true expert at it. Jenna, I am absolutely 100% sure I could spend $100,000 of Facebook advertising in the next 2 weeks and I wouldn't get one coaching client. I wouldn't get one buyer client. I wouldn't get one listing, but I would have spent $100,000 and made Mark Zuckerberg a little bit richer. Every dollar that you spend in social media advertising, and Facebook is certainly a case in point, is completely wasted these days because the only people who understand how to do Facebook advertising have to be immersed in it every day. And for you or me, or even the typical marketing agency that you might have, if you were to spend $1,000 a month in Facebook advertising, I think you would be just throwing that money away. But door hangers are still something that we know and it works. And so what I would like you to do is, I'm working on one for myself, by the way. And if Stephanie sees this, she's going to kill me because she likes things that are pretty and highly branded, and I completely agree with her. But these are just some concepts I'm toying with, and this is the best I can do. This is not the actual door hanger I'm going to use. This is some sketches that I've drawn. So I want to do one for myself, and I'm happy to share these concepts with you, of course, is I want to do one where the O in the door hanger is the O of the word "don't sell this house."
Yeah.
Then there would be a picture of Jenna. You see, I drew you right here. What do you think?
I saw that with the little arrow.
It's fantastic, right? So I wanted to do some reverse psychology. Okay, and I'm going to do one for myself, and my face will go on there, or Nick, or Simon's, or somebody's face. But I designed this with you in mind. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to do some reverse marketing, and I don't know if you use this at all, but I can tell you when I'm trying to sell something, whether I'm trying to convince somebody to list with me, or I'm trying to sell a house, or whatever. What I often will do is a client will say, well, you know, I would buy this house, except I don't like green granite. And so rather than, you know, I argue with them, I go, you're right, green granite. I go like this, and I go like this. And then what she will say, or he will say is, well, of course, I could always replace the green granite with black, which I really like. So what I try to do is I don't try and answer every point with a counterpoint. Most agents are tempted to do that. I often will agree with them. Yeah, I don't really like green either. And I won't say anymore. I'll smile, I'll shrug my shoulders, I'll look around the room. And sure enough, over the next 5 or 10 minutes, clients will convince themselves without me saying a word, right? You know that, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things I wanted to do with my door hanger, and maybe yours too, is I wanted to at least try one, which is don't sell this house, right? Instead, you know, do the WWWBD. You know what that stands for? WWWBD?
What would Warren Buffett do?
There you go. You can read. You got through grade 1 okay? That was a joke. Okay. So you know, with door hangers, and by the way, I would like to do some lawn signs like this. I'm a huge believer in lawn signs. So I'm not talking about the big signs that you put up that are quite expensive, but you can print lawn signs for about $10 each. And as long as your clients give you permission, you could put 3 or 4 lawn signs, blank, 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 that tell a story, right? And so I'm just saying that there's still some old-fashioned marketing things that we can do. Yes, I'm all over social media, it's true. And I'm all over blogging. And, you know, I've got lots of webinars. I'm doing one today and all kinds of other stuff. I'm not saying no to that. I'm just saying that this old-fashioned stuff really works, especially in our business. And especially if we do things differently. Remember I asked you, Jenna, what your top 3 things that differentiated you are, and then we added maybe 2 more. I think you should put reasons to believe in Jenna and some stories in your door hangers and also on your lawn signs. All right, so enough of that. And here's the lawn signs. You can do a lot. I mean, this one is just open house, but I have used lawn signs that are in a series where they each tell a little bit of the story. Do you ever make it like a book when you were a kid that you could flip through and pictures would move?
Yeah.
You ever do what's it called, a flip book?
Flip book, yeah.
Okay, so if you did a flip book, I use, believe it or not, I've done it. I've done lawn signs where I have 6 in a row, and you have to read all 6 of them to get the message. And I watch them, right? People actually slow down and they'll read them and say, "Oh, look at this! It's so cool." So I do things that are always a little bit different. Some people call me crazy, but that's okay. All right, we talked about that. Another area where you probably are doing this, but I'm not sure, is if you really want to get more listings. When I started out in this business, I did a lot of this, where I would go and I would look at ads on Kijiji or whatever, where people were trying to rent property, and I kept seeing the ads over and over and over again. I would call the owner. I'd say, "Look, I'm a realtor. Listen, I work for Century 21 Explorer Realty, and it's been for rent for a long time. Do you want some help with that?" "Well, yeah, maybe." "Are you happy with your building?" "Nah, not really." "Are you making any money?" "I'm losing." "Well, what do you want to do?" "I'm thinking about selling it." "Oh, well, can I come and talk to you?" So this is a big thing but hear me out. You have to be willing. You can't bait and switch, right? Brendan, you know that. You can't bait and switch. So if the owner says, "Yeah, look, would you put it on MLS for me and rent it?" You have to do that, right? You're going to make $1,000, but you get to know the landlord, right? You get to know the owner. You have a chance to ask them, "Do you want fries with that?" or her, right? and he or she would say, yeah, I want to buy a few more of these. Hey, great. So do you do any of that now, Jenna?
I did up until today.
What happened today?
I freaking hate renters. And I hate landlords who rent their houses.
Okay. I guess I struck out on this one.
They are the most like needy, time consuming,
Actually not loyal.
and not loyal people. Like I had this one girl, she has 4 rental properties. I helped her rent 2 of the 4. She turns around and goes, I finally need to sell one of them. I said, that's great. We've been working together forever. She goes, I found a friend to sell it for me for a really low commission. She's like, thanks for your help. Like, have a nice life. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? We worked our butts off and lost money helping you rent your property.
I give up. I give up. I'm innocent. Don't shoot me. But I'm telling you, for some agents that are kind of going to work with you, Jenna, and we're starting out, I've started lots of agents. Don't forget, I've trained now 65 realtors.
Yeah.
And I almost all of the young men and women, I've gotten them to do this. And they get a little bit of money, but they get their feet wet, and they do find clients.
Yeah. And you know what?
I would not ask a realtor like you who's been in this business for 15 years to do it. I'm not suggesting I'm not doing it either. But I have lots of young realtors. When I train them, I get them to do this. And it's fun. You know, the first time they do a lease and they get $1,000, oh, it's so exciting, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
we tried that. And Brendan's here on the call, obviously to sort of maybe chime in and let us know how it went. We tried that though. And like he did, we had 3 or 4 listings for rentals when we started. Brendan, what's your experience with kind of starting out that way to try to get a little bit of experience?
I mean, experience-wise and just taking people out for showings, sure, but not really any of it has panned out for me in any way, shape, or form. If it's just no shows, it's letting me know 20 minutes before they're supposed to be there, when they confirm 40 minutes before that they were going to be at the showing, and then they just didn't show up. Or it was the list that was something I dealt with as well. I was supposed to show a listing a couple weeks ago, and the office didn't take the listing off, that the listing had been canceled. So I was ready to go meet people, and they just decided that they weren't going to rent it anymore.
I hear you. One of the things that I do, Brendan, just if it helps at all, is I group rentals. So like I have a few properties that I rent for myself and my kids. We own a few investment properties, and I will not show individuals. I will say, look, Saturday from 2 to 4, show up, and I'll get anywhere from 3 or 4 to sometimes 7 or 8 people showing up. I do my interviewing thing. I pick the best one, or try to, or best 2, and then go through it that way. I'm certainly not for $1,000 commission or whatever. I'm not going out 17 times.
Yeah, and that's something that Jenna actually recommended to me to do, and that's what I set up. But even that's what I meant about, like, one of the renters that we were doing, I was supposed to have 8 people there, and I think 2 or 3 groups showed up out of that 8 groups. So I mean, it's just it's not a reliable thing, and even like from an office, like the listing agent didn't tell me that it was canceled, and I was supposed to be there an hour later.
Can I speak to that? Because I've only been in real estate. This is going into my 4th year. So when I started, just like Brendan, I was working with buyers and sellers in the beginning. I was very lucky in the beginning to have a client base that trusted me, but all my subsidiary income that came in quick came in from rentals. All my experience to writing offers came from rentals. It was frustrating, but I did what you said, where they would call me, I qualify, I would show them, add 3 or 4 properties, which Jenna taught me. Oh, well, let's not go see one. These 4 properties are available. We actually were so busy for one property that the tenants had to be there when we went. We actually held open houses and would have 30 people through because there was nothing on the market, and follow up with them. Some of them are still in the database today. Some we never showed up and did anything, but it's how I got all my experience running offers, because you would only write 1 offer to buy every 4 months, where I would do 4 rentals in a month and get paid in 8 weeks.
Right, and I'll admit it. I did the same thing, Michelle. I'm not I'm not too proud to do whatever I need to do. People who know me on this call know that if I didn't have enough business as a coach, I have about 13,000 people in my email database. I would email every single person individually, not a mass email. I would say, hi, Bill, it's me, Bruce Firestone. I'm a really good real estate investment coach. Here's a story that I think you'd really enjoy. And do you need any help? I'm available. I would do that 13,000 times because, like everybody on this call, I got to support my family. There's nobody else out there. You want to know what my CPP payout is every month? I'm 66 years of age. It's it's $620 a month. That's it.
And that's the thing with the rentals. Like you got a high right away in 6 weeks. Look, I got a paycheck. It was $800 for literally very short amount of time of work. Yes, the sales of buying are great and the commissions are higher, but you get very quick money from rentals.
Right. So and
take a lot of
Michelle,
time, but it's quick money.
You and I are on the same wavelength. I mean, I will do anything I have to do to support my wife and kids and my mother-in-law and my family. I will, anything legal, right? And I'm not too proud to do whatever I need to do. I remember when I started working with Ralph, I leased a 400 square foot retail bay in some god awful shopping plaza somewhere for a client of mine. And Ralph said, "You're wasting your time, Firestone. You're a PhD." And I said, "Yeah, that stands for piled higher and deeper. I'll do what I need to do." And I started, with little stuff, Brendan. It wasn't all big stuff. Now, I got to the big stuff, but it didn't start that way. I was no different than Michelle. And that guy who I helped with his plaza, 2 years later, he became quite ill, and he came back to me, and I sold his plaza for $1.7 million. So I got a hell of a commission out of it. But the first commission for renting 450 square feet of retail space, I rented it to a guy who was from Somalia who sends money back home. So if you had $1,000 US you want to send back to your grandmother somewhere in a village in Somalia, you go to him and pay him, and he has that's what he does. And my commission for that was probably $600.
But the best people to practice on are renters, truly, at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. You and I are on the same wavelength. I don't know if Brendan is, but I get it. It's hard work.
It is hard work.
So Jenna, the other thing that I really want you to do, and has to come from you, I believe, you're the face of the franchise, I keep saying that, is I want you to set up your sponsored network. Look at, Stephanie can give it to you in 10 minutes, every single person that Jenna & Co. has paid in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Every one of those people should be a sponsor. And maybe when I say sponsor, they should be on your website as, partners, but only going to stay there if they refer people to you. Like, why should you be the only one sending, people out to building inspectors? Why should you be the only one sending people to a lawyer? Why can't that lawyer, the building inspector, the home stager, and all these other people, the mortgage broker, send clients to you? Like, what the heck?
Why not? My stager blocks. She just gives me one person a month.
Yeah, you should hear me talk to my lawyers. And this, would you like working with me? Oh, Bruce, yes. You're our number one referrer. I said, I'm glad you brought that up. You know what? You're number 17 on my list of top referrers. And I'm number one, right? Oh, I guess we should, yes. What about your accountant and your bookkeeper and everybody else? Everybody on that AP should be a partner, should be on your website, but they should be referred. And you have to remind them how good you are at what you do, and where you specialize, the property types and neighborhoods. And if you've got anybody in those areas who needs help, we're available, and I want you to be top of mind. You got to remind them, because otherwise, and I remind my lawyer every few months. I say, hey, Steve, I haven't heard from you lately, other than I sent you another 12 clients in the last 6 months, right? And I haven't got one referral from him in the last 6 months. I'll know that, and I'll say, you could do better. And he does. He said, oh, yeah, you're right, I should. And in fact, I've got one guy in mind already. They all do it, but then they forget. So you remind them. And these are just some of my sponsors, but you have your own. And then I'm just going to do one more thing, because we're getting close to the end here, and I don't want to spend too much more of your time. But this is one of the things that I think, Jenna, you got excited about this at our last session together, and I want to make sure Brendan and everybody else on this call sees it too. I'm a huge believer in this following sentence: God helps those that help themselves. And you know, whether you believe in God or not, I happen to have my own beliefs, but I don't believe in when times are tough. You know, I've had some tough times, and I'm sure everybody on this call has. I don't believe in just sitting there feeling sorry for myself. So I believe in creating my own clients. As I said a few minutes ago, if I had to email individually 13,000 people because I wasn't busy enough and I wasn't making enough money, I would do that. But there's a better way to do it. And one of the things, Jenna, I think that you could do is you could put together an investor group with anywhere from $150,000 to $300,000. Tomorrow, Guillaume and Trish and I, and Nick and Simon and I are on a call, a Zoom call with 2 Toronto investors. They're wealthy guys. I mean, really wealthy. And I want them to help Trish and Guillaume with GT Global Prosperity, and I want them to help Nick and Simon with their next investment, right? So, you know, and you would have your own contacts, but imagine if you had a group that, say, ponied up $300,000, and you could find a product in your neighborhoods that you really like, you know, the Canada, the Barhaven, the Stittsville areas, if that's the areas you finally decide that's where your focus is. You could bag a bargain, right? Because you're not a retail buyer. I'm not a retail buyer, Jenna, nor are you. You could find a bargain, so you're buying wholesale. You understand what I mean by wholesale?
Like before it hits the market.
Not necessarily before it hits the market. Sometimes, you know, like next door to my little house here, there's a home owned by a very, very, very lovely couple that they're in their late 80s, early 90s. Unfortunately, Glenn has passed away. And Ruth is very elderly. And at some point, the little house next door to me is going to become available. When it becomes available, and this is confidential, guys, it's unlisted video. I've never talked to Ruth or Glenn about buying their house or their sons or daughters, never. But if it becomes available and it's days on market, 15, 20, 30 days, I'll probably make an offer, right? Now, I might miss out on it, but that's okay. There's always another fish, right, in the sea. So whether it's on MLS, Jenna, or not, the most important thing I found is days on market, right? And I'll buy handicap property. I'll buy property that hasn't been renovated like this one since 1965. I'll buy property that's owned by a hoarder that no one else will touch. But I bought that property on Ambleside Drive $150,000 below market because it was owned by a hoarder, and nobody would even go in the house because it smelled so bad. I didn't care. I went in, went through it, and I bought it for $150,000 below market. So you are not a retail buyer, you're a wholesale buyer. So imagine if you had $300,000 and you bought 2 properties, properly animated, and you used a Mad River financing structure, which I won't talk about today, but where you ended up with some ownership, but very, very little of your own money went in there. So let's say you had $150,000, you bought house A, $150,000 bought house B. Maybe Jenna put $5,000 into house A and $5,000 into house B. Using the structure where the rest of it's debt, Jenna could own 50% of that, and the investors could own 50% of it. That's the Mad River structure. So with $10,000, you end up owning 2 properties, right? And you dress it up, you animate it, you know, put lipstick on a pig. And here's the model, Jenna, that I don't think I mentioned to you, maybe I did. The model is, out of every 4 that you do, you sell 3 and you keep 1. So the sale of the 3, so you buy it, you bought it at wholesale, you tart it up, you know, put lipstick on a pig, you do a little bit of animation, you tell a really nice story. It's not a house flip, it's an animation. And you sell that, you know, you bought it for $325,000, you tarted it up a little bit, you sold it for $425,000, you paid yourself a commission, you created your own listings that way. Maybe you made $75,000 or $80,000 in a year. That's kind of the number. And then you recycle that money endlessly. And the reason it's 3 sales and 1 keep is that over 10 years, you and your investors will end up with, you know, a really neat portfolio. All of it will be cash positive, right? All of it will mean if you have the initial $300,000 with this model, it just is rinse and repeat. Do you understand, Jenna?
Understand 100%, and I've been thinking about this after our meeting last week. But it comes down to me to like the actual process. Like I started thinking about what it would take to get an investor, what it would take to get the contracts, what it would take to buy the place, what it would take to go and do the work. To, like that's what overwhelmed me after.
But I knew you would say that, but you're already doing it.
Yeah.
What's 8 Benlark?
It was a lot of work and way more money than I should have spent because I had to hire people to do the work, right?
I wasn't coaching you then. What I'm telling you is if you're going to do the work anyway and you use this process, you're going to create 3, and if you get really good at it, 6 new listings a year for yourself. You're going to create a new revenue stream, and you're going to create a portfolio that's got legs, that some of the, 1 out of every 4 you're going to keep and manage. You're doing it anyway.
I'm doing 90% of it. It's the investor part of it that.
Right. I understand, but that's your challenge, right? I mean, you've got 2,500 people. Trust me, in the next year, if you ask people, hey, listen, I'm forming an investor group. Do you want to be part of it? I'll bet you if you made that part of your lingo, right? Hey, you just sold somebody's house for $500,000, right? Yeah. And you say, hey, listen, by the way, I'm forming an investor group. You want to be part of it? Yeah, I just got 500 grand. I'll give you 50. Okay. You don't need many of those. Jenna, I'm all about, listen, if I were talking to, I have a number of people I coach in the United States. When I talk to American realtors about this model, they get it. Work isn't an issue, right? They're already doing it, but they're doing it in a shabby manner, right? They're doing an 8 Benlark. I tell them, no, we're going to do something much better. We're going to pick better buildings. We're going to have more animation potential. We're going to have real value added. So it's not a flip. It's a value added. It's more than a lipstick on a pig. So I'm absolutely sure you could do it. $300,000 for you. You'd need probably 6 of your seller clients who say, yeah, I'll be part of that. That's cool. That's a really good idea. Why didn't I think of it? You gotta believe in yourself. Do you have one of my bracelets yet?
Yeah.
What does it say here?
On a restaurant.
What does it say?
Believe.
There you go. I have more confidence in you than you do. And by the way, 40% of my coaching clients are female. And like I've said before, the guys have way too much confidence. They're probably overly confident, and the women have none. And I want a perfume. I have 3 beautiful daughters, all in their 20s. I want a perfume, that they can sprinkle every morning. It's called confidence. Because my daughters are beautiful, and they're talented, and they're successful, and they have 0 confidence. Did you just tune me out?
Yes.
So Michelle and yourself, Jenna, and your team, and Trish, all the women on this call, I believe in you more than you do, and you got to fix that. Okay, you guys, anything else before we go? Trish? Anybody else? Boy, I must have really struck out today. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, Jenna.
Yeah.
I did too, and I really appreciate everyone's time. Brendan, thanks for joining in. And Brendan, better days are ahead for you. You're gonna have a baby. You're gonna make a ton of money in this business. But I'm with Michelle on this. It's based on balls. It's singles and doubles. The home runs, that takes a little longer, right, Michelle?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not worried about that. I mean, I've been spending all day talking with renters and trying to sort that out. I thought we were just talking about the problems with renters. That's what I was talking about.
I hear you. I
Nobody's
know
to be made, right?
Not willing to work with renters.
you guys are great. I'll see you later. Bye.